don't need that energy. When everybody be like, oh, I'm going to match people energy. Do not match nobody energy. That is not the frequency in which they pouring life principles into your life. I'm not about to match nobody energy. And then I'm feeling down and I'm feeling sad and I'm feeling all of that on me. No. I'm going to stay in alignment. I'm going to keep my life principles intact.
Sun-kissed skin, hues of gold and black, bronze, brown, caramel to cream. My melanin determining the intricate details of my overall theme. Coils resilient and bold from roots of Afro-textured, natural and wavy mane. An expression of my uniquely individual style. And it's a black thing. Cocoa butter saturated, sealed with moisture. Hydrating my melanin to rich skin. A gift from my ancestors, my family, my kin. Welcome to the Coils and Cocoa Butter Podcast.
Hey y'all, welcome to the Coils and Cocoa Butter Podcast. I'm your host, Jazz, and today is a special day. It is the finale of season 1. So I'm super excited to bring you this 2-part series on conquering anxiety with spiritual weaponry. So this topic is super important to me because I've struggled with anxiety my whole entire life. It's something that I still struggle with, but when I was younger, I didn't have a name for what I was feeling. I wasn't able to tell you exactly that I was feeling anxious. So I wanted to start off by just giving a brief overview of what anxiety is. So anxiety is feeling of worry or nervousness or apprehension about something. So it can be like more of a normal range of functioning when in your body's normal response to a stressor. But when it is in more of the normal range of functioning, it will be occasional and usually have an identifiable trigger, versus when anxiety becomes problematic is when you can't always tell like why I'm feeling anxious. It just seems to come out of nowhere with no rhyme or reason. When it becomes excessive and frequent, when it's interfering with your daily functioning, like those might be signs that you are like really experiencing high levels of anxiety. And it might be disorder at that point. So some things, signs and symptoms that you might notice if you are experiencing anxiety, maybe like feelings of impending doom, panic, or danger, sweating, increased heart rate, trembling, difficulty concentrating, stomach ache, rapid breathing, feelings of being weak or tired. So these are all signs of anxiety. So I want to, like always, be clear that I am not functioning in the role of a clinician. I am not a therapist at this point. I have on a different hat as I'm, talking about it right now. But if you do have any of these signs or symptoms, please understand that it could be something else. You might have some stuff going on medically. Things that we eat or drink can contribute to our anxiety. So please don't just self-diagnose like, oh, that's what it is, without getting some professional assistance in making those determinations. And also, these are not extensive DSM criteria. I didn't go over everything, and how to diagnose anxiety. So don't think like, oh, well, somebody who knows what they're doing said this. So please don't take this as an end-all be-all for anxiety. But that's just a general overview on understanding anxiety. So for me, it became, it was always just something that interfered with my day-to-day function. I didn't do a lot of things. I turned down a lot of opportunities because of my anxiety. I found myself needing to be with more extroverted people and finding ways to kind of function in day-to-day life because I knew I couldn't do it by myself, just because my anxiety was so severe at times. I've, managed my anxiety in a lot of different ways throughout the years. But a piece that I realized that I was missing was conquering it from a spiritual perspective. And that might sound weird or abstract, so I'm going to break it down a little bit. So personally, when it hit me, I was at church and the pastor was just talking about like how it's easy for us, we're all so spiritual, oh my gosh, for us to identify other people's issues or what things other people need to work on. But then our issues, our demons just sitting around chilling like, whatever, she not working on me, he not working on me, I'm good, I'm kicking it. So it was like in that moment, the Holy Spirit hit me like smack dead in my face. In that moment, I realized that something I thought was just my personality trait, something that I was just like, oh, I'm anxious, it's not a big deal, was something that I needed to be addressing on a spiritual level, because it was something that was being used against me spiritually. So we'll talk about that a little bit more, but I just want to also point out that there are so many ways to address things that are going on in our lives, and especially in a Black community. I can only speak as a Black person because I've been Black all my life, if you haven't noticed. But sometimes we use our spirituality, we use our relationship with God as an excuse to not get the help that we need. And I know, God is all you need, and I know that, but what I'm saying is God sometimes, and a lot of times, shows up through people. He uses people in this earth, and sometimes we God gonna fix it, that we turn away the help that God then sent. So for example, I think about this story when, it's not a real story I don't think, but like when they were talking about somebody was shipwrecked at sea and was praying to God, please send me help, and people would come along with boats and try to help them. Hey, I'm gonna help you. And they like, no, God is gonna send help. Then somebody else come around with a boat. I'm gonna help you. No, God gonna rescue me. And then this person ended up drowning that sea. And then he gets to heaven like, Lord, why didn't you save me? And God like, I sent people to come and rescue you. You turned them down. You know what I'm saying? So, don't always think you only have to address things from a one-sided perspective. Like, you might be praying about it, but it's cool if you still go get therapy too. It's cool if you go to a support group too. It's cool if you, talk to someone who can help you through it. It's cool if you go get help while you're praying, while you're trusting God, and trusting that God is going to allow you and send people along the way to be of assistance to you. I've battled anxiety my entire life. My mom actually told me that her grandmother, so my great-grandmother, talked to her about her being a worrier. She described herself as a worrier and kind of just talked about how it became a generational thing. So as I continued to manage my anxiety and understand, what I was going through from a spiritual perspective, I realized that this thing was not just on me. It was generational and something that had been passed down to me. And even, the more I talk to my family and I understand my parents, I realize that I've been battling this thing generationally from both sides. So some of the things that we are battling against have not only just been on us, but have been generational, right? So when we think about those things, like, we have to look at things from a bigger perspective. So that is why it's so important for me to make a decision that I had to address my anxiety from a different perspective. And I will hope that you would join me in doing so too. So this episode is specifically about conquering anxiety with spiritual weaponry. So before I jump into things, I just want to be clear that this is from a biblical perspective, and I recognize and totally understand that people connect spiritually in many other different ways. Just a little bit of background about me. So when I was in undergraduate, school, for electives, I started taking Bible classes because I'm like, hey, I went to private school most of my life. This is going to be an easy A for me, which it was. But in one of the classes that I took, the professor said that most people are the religion that they are because their parents were. And I don't know, I just think different. To me, that was a challenge. Like, I received that as a challenge when he said that. He wasn't talking directly to me. You know, he was talking to the class, but I was like, okay, cool. Well, I'm about to figure this out for myself. You know, so I had a foundation, but I set out on a mission to understand God in a higher way for me. I wanted to make sure that I believe what I believe because I believe it, not because somebody else told me to believe it. So in doing so, I took a whole bunch of philosophy classes, and I actually eventually began to minor in religion. So I've taken all kinds of religion classes, Eastern and Western religions, from Confucianism, Taoism, to, Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, Christianity. Specifically, I've done some Catholicism, some Baptist class, like whatever you could think of, I have studied to some degree. So I wanted to be clear that I appreciate religion and spirituality in a whole nother perspective. It's something that I have specialized in and dived into for years. So I honor those things, but I also wanted to be clear that everything that is spiritual does not mean that it is aligned with God. And I know that might ruffle some feathers and get some people upset, but I'm here to speak the truth, and I'm here to speak God's truth. So I just wanted to caution you and not just say you have to do things the way I'm doing things, because I understand God on a whole nother level, that God was God before religion existed. So I'm not going to ever put God in a box and say, you have to do it this way, you have to walk this way in order to hear or see God, because God is God, okay? But be cautioned that everything that claims to be spiritual is spiritual or supernatural is not in alignment. Everything is not in alignment with the blood of God, the blood of Jesus, and is not connected to Yahweh, the Most High, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, however you refer to the real Creator God. So if you are someone who, you know, didn't grow up knowing God, and you are really trying to connect, and you know, may be fearful, or just trying to discern, like, is this thing that I'm doing in alignment? Am I really hearing from God? Is this my own voice? Is this the voice of the world? Is this the enemy's voice? And you're trying to discern those things. I just want to tell you that God knows a willing heart that is seeking him. If you are honestly trying to find God, and even if you take a misstep, even if you go in the wrong direction, God is God enough. His grace and mercy is sufficient enough to find you wherever you are and to lead you in the right path. So I'm just going to tell you that God can direct you even if you don't know. So just seek him and he will direct your path. But I just wanted to point that out because I recognize that everybody doesn't subscribe to biblical principles or doesn't consider themselves to be certain religions. But I have said in the past that I am about relationship more so than religion. So I'm talking about having a real relationship with God, with Yahweh, in which you communicate, which you hear from God, and he can direct you. So it's not a dig at any other, you know, spiritualities. I'm not the end all be all in knowledge and information, but just be careful. Just be careful. So jumping back into it. So fighting anxiety through spiritual weaponry. Ephesians 6:12 talks about the armor of God. It says, for we wrestle, and some versions say struggle, not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of the world, against spiritual, there's that word spiritual, wickedness in high places. So when we hear about you know, the fact that we're wrestling not only we're wrestling not only against things that we see in the physical, but we're fighting against things that we can't even see that are in the spiritual realm. That should give you that context, like clue of, I need to be fighting these things on a higher level. So I give you an example, like just everything that we go through, everything that we see around us is not just functioning in this one realm of reality and one realm of functioning. So like, if you got somebody on your job who is constantly lying on you, constantly causing trouble, getting you in trouble with your boss, and you are really in there, you know, trying to do the right thing. Yeah, you could go in there and punch her in the face. You can go in there and cuss them out. You can go in there and try to be petty too. But recognize, number one, I don't suggest that, but recognizing, hey, I'm battling this thing, not just in the physical. That's going to be something that's not going to solve the problem, that can get me in trouble, and won't be effective. Like, why would I use that mode of functioning? So knowing that we're fighting things, supernatural things that are not on in this just physical realm of functioning, equips us with information and knowledge that the enemy hopes that we don't know. So Hosea 4:6, it says, my people are destroyed from lack of knowledge. So basically the enemy counts on our ignorance. He counts on us thinking that all of this is just surface level. That person on your job is just tripping and they just need to get punched in the face. But if we are not fighting things on the level that we need to be fighting them, we're gonna miss the whole point of everything. So I'm gonna do some things to inform you on how to fight this anxiety on a spiritual level, as we recognize and understand that we are fighting spiritual things every day. So you are gonna encounter these things whether you are informed about it or not. So why not be informed and equip yourself on a spiritual level so that you can fight these things in a way that will last, in a way that will be sufficient, in a way that you will learn and be strengthened in the process. So let's jump into how to be informed. So the word says that we are given armor, that God provides us armor to fight these spiritual battles, because we're constantly in warfare. We're constantly in warfare. So God equips us, his people that know him, people that seek him, with these spiritual weapons. So this is the breakdown of the weaponry that we're providing. The shield of faith, the breastplate of righteousness, the sword of the spirit, the belt of truth, the helmet of salvation, and feet of peace. So when we recognize that we don't just go into battle by ourselves, that's already one piece of the puzzle that we don't have to even worry about. So some of the enemy's strategies that he uses to conquer us, to make us weak, to make us doubt, he attacks our passions, he attacks our focus, our identity, our family, our confidence, our calling, our purity, our rest, our heart, and our relationships. These are some of the ways and the strategies that he tries to come against us. So tying it back to this internal, this spiritual and supernatural battle that we can be fighting, that may be contributing and is contributing to some of our anxiety. Specifically, like, have you ever had anxiety that made it difficult for you to focus? That's something that is underlying for me. Like, when I get too just overwhelmed, I can't think of words. It's like the tip of my tongue. I can't get it out. That's a strategy. We said that the enemy comes against our focus. Maybe against your identity could be another way that you are attacked with anxiety. So, feeling like you are less than, or you can't do what you believe that you're called to do because this level of anxiety. Like, so I know for sure, for me, I have told God, this is how foolish I am. Lord, you specifically told me to do this thing. And I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. I'm called to do this thing, but I literally can't do it, right? So the enemy works against your calling. I be reminding God of stuff like, did you forget that I'm scared? Did you forget that I can't talk well? I use too much Ebonics. Like, I come up with all of the reasons why I can't do stuff. So that's an attack against my calling. Definitely. Have you stayed up in the middle of the night? You can't sleep because you just worried about stuff. How I'm going to pay this? How I'm going to do this? Just anxious. Coming against your rest. That's the enemy too. So when we got to recognize that we are fighting this anxiety from so many different facets, it's not just physical, y'all. It's spiritual too. And we have to recognize these things in order to fight them off on a higher level. So, how many of these things that I went over, like strategies that the enemy uses, could you say, like, yeah, I could see how that was a spiritual attack, or I could see how, yeah, I could see how the enemy used that against me. So the first principle that we have to understand in fighting and conquering anxiety with spiritual weaponry is understanding the life and death principles. And I just want to be clear that I'm talking about anxiety specifically, but these are skill sets that you can battle a lot of stuff with, not just anxiety. You might be, battling depression or trauma, or just trying to learn to trust God in a bigger way. And you just keep hearing these voices of you're not enough, you can't do it, you not equipped, your family ain't do it, you got too much trauma. Those are voices that are building you up to not believe in yourself. That are principles that we're about to get into. So I'm not gonna give it away too much. So when I talk about the life and death principles, I don't mean specific things like our physical death, our physical life, like you bringing a baby into the world or somebody actually died. But I'm talking about things that we speak, things that we think, things that we put in our atmosphere, things that we pour into our spirits and our souls and our kids. So those life and death principles, like if you saying like I can't do it, we never gonna be okay, my family failed and I'm gonna fail too, nobody is gonna love me, those things that make you feel empty, that make you feel drained, that contribute to your anxiety, those are death principles. Things that fill you with life and goodness and hope, things that help you feel like, God got this, that produce faith in you. Those are life principles. So these things might seem a little bit abstract, but even in therapy, we use this understanding of the power in what we say in some therapeutic modalities. For example, cognitive behavioral therapy is a therapy modality in which we look at how our thoughts influence our behavior, which influences everything around us. So if I think about, I want to start this new job, right? But hey, I failed in the past, so what's the point of even going to school? I'm going to waste money. I'm not going to pass. It's just going to be, I'm just going to always be stuck in this state. That thought process leads us to be stifled. It leads us to maybe not take action and stay in a place of being stuck. So that thought contributed to our behavior, which contributed to where we are and how we see the world and how we perceive others. Or for another example, if I've got hurt in the past, if I've been in relationship after relationship, I've been hurt, I've been lied to, I've been cheated on, I don't want to be back in a relationship. And I'm not going to ever find nobody that loves me. Everybody sucks. I'm going to be alone forever. And then that might lead to you not trying to go get therapy and work through those things. That might lead to you not making that dating profile. And, that might lead to you, even if you are dating, putting that wall up and not letting people through because of how you think about the situation. So those death principles are manifesting, right? These are supernatural principles. These are supernatural, and they are, they are both strong forces. So if we are pouring life, so in those same situations, like let's switch up our language and see how it changes our thought process and changes the behavior. So once again, I've been hurt in relationships. I've been lied to. I've been cheated on. But I still believe that God has a plan for my life. I still believe that I'm worth it. I still believe that I have something to offer to someone else. That whole thought process would change the trajectory of where you go. So you just having a little bit of faith, because God only requires a mustard seed. Remember that, y'all. You having that little bit of faith that it's a possibility that you can find love again will lead you in a different direction. With that attitude, you are likely gonna either go seek therapy, you are gonna talk to somebody about it, you are gonna work through your issues, you're gonna look for characteristics in people that align with what you say that you want. You are gonna work on yourself, and those will lead to totally different results in your life. So these life and death principles are real, y'all. Another example of these life and death principles. If you constantly hear, unfortunately, a lot of people have grown up in environments that were very traumatizing for them, and they heard that they weren't worthy, or you're ugly, or you'll never be anything. Did those things stick with you? Did you replay those things? Did you have to work through those things even in your adult life? Same question. Have you been in situations where you were loved? You were valued? People told you, thank you, you're doing a great job. Did those things make you feel good? Did that give you an extra oomph in your day? That's just not a feeling that we feel. That's just, let's not think about it. Those are supernatural forces in the atmosphere. If you don't believe me, let's talk about it a little bit more. So I have always not understood why people act like the word and science are in opposition. If you have a God that created all of these things, then that means that science is connected to the very existence of God. Okay? So let me dive into it a little bit more as we understand these supernatural forces that we are battling against every day. Either there are, I'm saying battling against for the death principles, but these supernatural forces are also life principles and things that are in the atmosphere that just make you feel good, right? So Dr. Masaru Emoto is a Japanese researcher who did experiments using water to see how human vibrations and frequencies influence the molecular structure of that said water molecule. So he would then study these molecules under a microscope. So different water droplets receive different stimulus and different vibrations. So some of them would be exposed to classical music, and another one would be exposed to rock music. One of them would be exposed to someone speaking words to it. Water, y'all, drops of water. One principle would be death principle. So one water molecule would be hearing, you are stupid, you are dumb, nobody loves you. Another one would be hearing, you are beautiful, have a great day, you are awesome. What do you think happened to these molecules? Studied under a microscope, there were significant differences in the things that received the vibrations of goodness in life versus those that received the vibrations of death principles and sadness. And this study was tried multiple times by other experimenters. Some people use rice. Some people use snowflakes, and they would do the same thing, speak different things to them, be exposed to different frequencies, these life and death principles, and the results, were usually the same, difference in the molecular structure, and the things that receive these life principles were beautiful. So do not think that it is not power in the things that you put in the atmosphere and the things that you receive into your spirit. The word says that faith comes through hearing. So if faith comes through hearing, then what we have faith in comes from hearing. So you can have faith in life principles, but you can also have faith in death principles. So what are you putting your faith in? What are you hearing? What are you absorbing into your day-to-day, your atmosphere? So some of the things that are super important in conquering this anxiety are ensuring that we are pouring life into our situations, that we are pouring life into our day-to-day. So how do we do that? How do we align ourselves with life principles in our everyday life? How do we take this abstract thing and make it tangible? We do it by monitoring who we are around and who we are receiving from. So it doesn't even always have to be someone speaking death principles to you. It could be some of the things that you absorb in the day-to-day. For me, I have to monitor how much news I watch. I have to monitor how much social media I get. When I start to notice, especially when I'm getting anxious. When I'm getting anxious, it's usually already too late. I'm already spinning and I gotta shut it down for a little bit. But I recognize, for me specifically, like when I watch the news, when I absorb those things into my spirit, you can't go a couple of seconds without seeing somebody died, somebody missing, just something terrible and horrible. And sometimes, like, I think about it for a long time, like when watching the news, and realize that stuff is in my spirit, right? So I have to guard my heart. I have to guard my spirit. I have to shut that stuff down to better filter what comes in and out of my spirit. So if I want to get some news, I can, Google some stuff and filter what I want and what I don't want into my spirit. So that's one thing, is monitoring who you allow and what you allow. That can also be in the form of people. You might have somebody that you cool with, that seem pretty cool, but they always got some hater stuff to say to you. Like, girl, your hair messed up. Or, girl, he don't like you for real. Or you too short. Or you too tall. Like, I don't need that energy. When everybody be like, oh, I'm going to match people energy. Do not match nobody energy. That is not the frequency in which they pouring life principles into your life. I'm not about to match nobody energy, and then I'm feeling down, and I'm feeling sad, and I'm feeling all of that on me. No. I'm going to stay in alignment. I'm going to keep my life principles intact. So another thing that you can do to speak life principles or to practice life principles in your day-to-day life is monitor and guard, protect your energy. Like I said, don't match people's energy. Protect your space, protect you where you at. I mean, even if, you might not be able to always like stop people, especially like if you at work and you got a cubicle, you might not be able to just say like, no, can't nobody, but you could protect your space. Like, somebody come to you with drama, somebody come with you with some mess, shut it down, and you don't have to receive something just because somebody coming to you with it. You have the right to set those boundaries. And if you have any questions about boundaries, check out the Coils and Cocoa Butter podcast on boundaries and self-care. Soft plug. Another thing you can do to ensure that you are aligning with these life principles to conquer that anxiety is to get spiritual reinforcements. So that looks like having people that know God in your corner, that speak life to you, that you can talk to when you feeling like, I'm not there yet, y'all. I'm not feeling good. I'm not feeling great. People that can lift you up, that can pour into you when you need it. So these are all things, like I said, are not things that only apply to anxiety, but these are such good starters for conquering anxiety with spiritual weaponry, because we are using the things that God says that we need to use in the spiritual battle, that we're fighting every day, and recognizing that our anxiety is not just a physical thing that we're battling it spiritually too. So check in for part 2. We're going to dive even deeper into battling anxiety with spiritual weaponry. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you heard something in this episode that you feel like really resonated with you, if you know somebody that is really battling through anxiety or depression or spiritual warfare right now, and they need to know how to be equipped with spiritual weaponry. So this is real, this is relevant. Don't forget to check out lovingmyshadesofbrown.com, where you can follow the podcast, see what events are coming up for Shades of Brown, and purchase affirmation material at the Hope at Midnight store. Be blessed, y'all. See y'all for part 2.